This is Glenn MacArthur, and this is the Absolute Truth, and I'm your host, Glenn MacArthur. Anyway, uh, this episode we're going to deal with the with the shocking revelations that Hitler got out of Germany after the war. So we've been told by first of all, let me say that this man was better known than Bin Laden. His profile was on every magazine printed at that time. Everybody knew Adolf Hitler. We all knew that he killed 24 million people. We all knew that he was a despot, and we all knew that he wanted to rule the world. Well, the thing of it is that to make a long story short, the key here is that the Soviets were surrounding all of Berlin, and they would have it totally surrounded April the 28th, 1945. I don't care about the fact that there may have been sliding one way or the other. The fact of the matter was he would have had to have gotten out. If he didn't get out April the 28th, 1945, he wasn't getting out. Now, we all know that he supposedly shot himself and took poison, and his wife Eva Braun too, after their nuptials in the bunker. Problem was that Stalin and Zhukov, Field Marshal Zhukov, didn't believe that he was there, and they kept the proof from the general public until the fall of the Soviet Empire, when the archives of the KGB were opened up, and we were allowed to have a look and run DNA tests. Well, we did, and guess what? Unless Adolf Hitler had a sex change operation, which I doubt, the blood on the sofa and the skull cap fragment with the bullet hole in it obviously were from a 40-year-old woman. So, well, that may have answered the facts with Eva Braun, but not with Hitler. There should have been some kind of DNA of his there, but there wasn't. We all know from FBI, CIA, and these others that he may have gotten out. Okay, where would he go? Well, I really believe, and according to his pilot, who stated unequivocally that he flew him out to Denmark, I had to start thinking, okay, if this guy got out, how would he get out? And obviously, he would have been flown out by his pilot. I mean, he couldn't get out fast enough. You had the French. I mean, you had the French. You got the British going up through the Denmark. They even captured old Himmler there, and then you've got the Soviets surrounding the whole city of Berlin. He would have had to flown out. There's no way he could have made it in his staff car anywhere. Okay, so and anyway, leaving the bunker is suicide. There are roving SS patrols to make sure that deserters didn't fall back into Berlin. He would have been captured, maybe even shot. He couldn't afford that. So my guesstimate is he got out through an escape tunnel or a hatch in the bunker. Now, where'd he go? Well, we all know there was a highway, and there was to the so-called Germania, which Speer was going to build, that big auditorium, and there was a subway line, and that subway line went perilously close to the airport, just up the street. So he basically would have been totally covered. SS patrols couldn't have spotted him. The Russian snipers couldn't have taken him out. He would have had a freebie all the way up to Tempelhof. Then, once he gets into Tempelhof, all he's got to do is find his pilot and fly out. Now, obviously, he would have flown out on his Annie if he's going to go pick up a few other people in or out, Goring or maybe Himmler. So, obviously, yeah, he would have flown his Annie. And he probably would have done it just at dusk, because that's when the American bombers are going home and the British bombers are coming in. Okay? So that's basically how I believe that's what happened there. in my estimation, is that the man got out. Now, where would he go? The pilot under when he was tried, they asked him at the Nuremberg trials, "Where did you go?" He says, "I went to Denmark." Well, with half of Denmark under control by the Allies, where would he go? You can't land. There's a good chance you might get pulled up by the wrong crowd. So I started looking around. And I started putting the pieces together, connecting the dots, and I came up with Gotland. It's a small island, all about 10 miles off the coast of Denmark, and it's owned by Denmark. And it also has a base there for the final modification and retrofits of the new Type 21 submarines, long range, and they were just based. There was almost 800 of them that were being retrofitted to go into action, and they were deep diving submarines, unlike the Type 9, and they had more than one bathroom, which would have suited Ava Braun very nicely. And it was isolated enough where they could get into the deep ocean without a lot of, fanfare. Unlike Bergen, where you have the Type 7 and the Type 9 flotillas, and they were even ambushed there at the end of the war by the Brits. So, I mean, now this is not the kind of thing that you want to rely on. It's obviously that they use this. Now, he would have, if he could have gotten there, and if he could have done it, just to make sure that nobody knew exactly who he was. My feeling is he was disguised. He was in disguise. He had to be in disguise. Anybody sees him, even his own pilot, you know, basically said that, yeah, I flew him out. But they didn't say he couldn't. He said he was in disguise. So obviously, the people on board the U-boat, the people on board the K, he would have been in disguise all the way up until he got to the Canary Islands, where they probably would have had the orders to proceed on with new batteries or whatever to Argentina. Now, we all know that there was a sighting of Hitler in a water tower in Berlin, and there was, after the war, there were like 2 sightings of him in Italy where they arrested him. And there was even a sighting on the close to the 28th up in near the Baltic Ocean at a hospital there. So, I mean, there's all kinds of sightings, but that brings up a lot more questions that we need to ask. The question that makes me wonder about this whole mess is why, and this is the empirical question, this is the one that's worth more than $1 trillion. Why did Hitler make Admiral Donitz his successor? Why? Because I believe he had intended all along to use a U-boat to get the heck out of Germany. And he needed a man on his side who wouldn't raise any suspicions. And a U-boat would make a very easy way of egress from the country. And if you know where to go, it makes it very simple. Now, he gets down, and let's say he gets down to San Antonio del Este, or del Este as they call it, San Antonio, which is down there on the Argentinian coast. He gets off the boat. The fact of the matter is, we have pictures. There are pictures of a Type 21 that was aerially photographed off the African coastline at the same around the same time that Hitler embarked from the U-boat. So it makes all the sense in the world that a Type 21 was used. Now, we have to ask ourselves, okay, he got away. And if this is the case, can we trust what we're being told? Okay, why didn't the CIA, which is brand spanking new, or the OSS, or even the FBI go and catch this guy in South America? Why? I mean, the Mossad had no problem catching Eichmann. but we didn't even bother to go down and check it out. Why? Simple. Operation Paperclip. Maybe Paperclip 2. Maybe Paperclip 1 was already shut down, and in the 50s we needed more information, more intel about Soviet operatives in Central and South America. So we made a deal with the devil. That's probably the big secret, and the big problem with this whole mess is that the CIA wants to keep it quiet. They don't want to be shown that they were a bunch of deal makers with the devil. We already know that in Operation Paperclip 1, we got some of the real nut jobs. We got a guard from Auschwitz as in Detroit. We got an SS general who's probably worked at Area 51 since the 70s, and who has created alien engines from parts that he had gotten from that crash in Lower Bavaria in 1936. I'm not surprised. I'm only surprised that we didn't catch on sooner. But that pretty much explains a lot of things to me. And so I put it to you. When was the Fourth Reich created and why? Where did this guy get his heads up from? Where did he get his intel from? Was it from that famous psychic who was Jewish? That gave him his timetable on when to do what, when, and where. There is some very interesting things going on, and there needs to be gotten to the bottom of it. And I hope that my watchers do get to the bottom of it. Maybe we can clear the air and finally put this thing to bed. We do know that according to eyewitness sightings, Hitler did die February the 13th, 1961, from gunshots, probably from an insurrection he tried to perform. Anyway, that's about all I have to say about that. So be on the watch for my next videos. And this is Glenn MacArthur. Absolute Truth. Goodbye.